I have no words. I appreciate the support, everyone. These are the words of Lorenzo, a very powerful up-and-coming VGC player. In the regional that just recently took place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in which it was the very first regional of the Regulation I format, it was a huge tournament that everybody was looking forward to because it was going to be a new meta and everything of the sort. So we were seeing so many different teams and structures and battle styles and everything that was just basically coming to fruition that people were just only speculating of beforehand. And at the start of round 4, Lorenzo and his opponent Shiliang were selected to be on stream. Now this is a lot of players' dreams, to actually go on stage and be able to be seen by everyone and have their battle just broadcast all around the world, and then you are basically known as a very good VGC player as you are making it onto the stream. And especially if you can win and have that interview after that, I mean, that's something I always hope to be on stream one day. One day they were right next to me, but nope, they didn't select me, unfortunately. But you know, that is something that people really hope to do. Lorenzo is actually a common name that was actually on stream because he's been doing very well in a lot of the previous tournaments, and as such he was able to be on stream multiple times. Now with that being said, at this particular tournament something odd was going on, or so it seemed that odd was going on, because during the tournament he was looking into the crowd, and then there was moments in which it just seemed suspicious in a way, and to where after the round ended, which Lorenzo did in fact take that victory, so that he won round 4 and he was 4-0. He won his round 5, so he was 5-0, and then he won round 6, so that was 6-0. But by that point in time, someone, it's unknown who, but someone had a complaint or suspicion that was then pushed all the way out. And then I guess during the following 2 hours after round 4, so like through round 5 and through round 6, maybe somebody was reviewing all of the footage, but I guess they had somebody that just was sitting there and just going through all of the footage and determined that Lorenzo was signaling to someone in the audience to get play information or something of the sort, and decided to then disqualify him. I don't know him personally, however, I have seen that there are many individuals that speak highly of him. And then there's this absurdity of this type of claim, which we are going to go into as well. But in a nutshell, what ended up happening is Lorenzo was suddenly pulled out of the tournament. He was disqualified. They said that that is the suspicion that's going on. But the biggest problem on top of that is that they say it is non-disputable. So no matter what, they say, hey, you are disqualified. We think this is going on. So it's just a thought. We just think it's going on, regardless of how absurd it might seem. And you are now disqualified. We like, but I haven't, or what's going on? And nope, we don't want to hear anything. You are disqualified. That's it. So you spend your money to travel out to this other part of the country, and then you are paying for your entry fees, paying for your hotels, your car fare, all of that type of stuff. You're preparing for this tournament. You go there, you're playing well, you're thinking you're doing well, and then they suddenly come and say, hey, you're disqualified. And on top of that, they even went through and said, hey, since we are disqualifying you technically from round 4, even though you won round 5, we're giving you a loss for that. And then even in round 6, we're giving you a loss for that as well, because we are now telling you, hey, you're disqualified. So those individuals that you did defeat, they now have wins on their record and you are out of the tournament. This makes it a very hostile environment and makes people very concerned about going into these tournaments here. And I think that's something that we need to address at this moment in time. But first, I don't want to go into this blindly. So what I want to do is I'm going to plug in my headphones and we're going to look at some old footage and also some of this most recent footage as well, and try to see where the judges could be thinking that he is in fact cheating. So let's throw on some headphones and let's look at this together. All right, one thing I can say right off the bat immediately here is that on these just images where I just look up different old battles from Lorenzo, you can see that on these thumbnails where they're just capturing images from the tournaments themselves, you can see that Lorenzo is typically looking at the camera, but it's not necessarily the camera. It's like he's kind of mean mugging, so smile a little bit if you could. But you know, he's looking at the camera or towards the audience, and this is where the camera is facing if you are not aware of how the stage is. So the camera is right in front of the audience, or like center of the audience, and it's looking at the people that are on the stage and you are competing. So this is just screenshots from the tournament, and you just catch it at one moment, and you know, one player may be looking at their screen, just looking at a couple of things, and Lorenzo is looking out into the audience, and it's not like the match has started or anything like that. So I mean, that just is what it is. There he is looking at his screen right there. So there's that. So let's take a look at one of the old matches, because you know, we want to have our baseline, and then we'll see what is different in terms of the new tournament. So let's see. Now, unfortunately, this is going from the other player's perspective, which is also an important variable that we need to discuss for the case that we are looking into right now. But as of right now, this is going to be from the point of view of Nicholas Morales' game. We see in the gameplay of the options that Nicholas is selecting, and what we need to do is then just keep an eye on what Lorenzo is doing. Is he going to be looking to the crowd, or is he not going to be looking to the crowd during this match?
Get the tail end off. Instead, once again, a Pokemon with a speed control move, just barely surviving, able to set up the board in a more favorable state. And we'll have to find out now if that's enough for Nicholas.
Archaludon will come back out onto the field. I think this is a great play from Nicholas, hoping to start getting.
I see him looking out into the crowd on occasion,
a position where it can,
but he's just looking. I mean, he's selected his moves and he's just looking.
King Gambit, though, will double down. It's a Terra Dark King Gambit with the black glasses on him. We've seen just how much damage it took.
So unfortunately, that was a loss for Lorenzo at that moment in time. But I mean, he's still in the very top and just playing very well. So there's no like bashing or anything of the sort. But you can see that on occasion he does look into the camera. So that is just his style of how he plays. Me, I think I might be, even though I get like attention, like boom, 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 squirrel, I just technically will still try to stay focused, because I don't really want to see what everybody else is doing, because if I do, I will really forget what I'm doing in my game. So, but that's just how he plays. So now let's take a look at what we are looking at here for the actual tournament here. So let's see. So this is from the actual stream from the 2025 Pokemon Milwaukee Regional Championship. And we're going to go and we'll skip through, and you'll see as I'm watching through this here. But we'll take a look and see how he looks into the camera.
In the early stages of that game was a really nice pivot for Lorenzo. And I'm really excited to see this third game. One, we get a game 3 on stream.
All right, so this is him going into round 3. You already saw him looking into the camera. But nonetheless, we are now looking at this game from Lorenzo's point of view, because the game is streaming from his side. So we can see all of his plays this time. See, on the previous one, we could not see what he was actually doing. We can just see his moves as you know, as it was actually happening in real time. But we couldn't see what he was selecting in advance. We could see what his opponent, Nicholas, was doing. This time, however, we can all see what Lorenzo is doing, but we cannot see what Shiliang is doing. So that is very important. But now let's see how it looks and what we can do, because of it being on this screen here. We're actually going to zoom in on Lorenzo and just see how he is playing in terms of this game.
Find ways to try to spin it more in their favor.
But we do see the run back of the leads we saw from game number 2. So now it's about the decision making heading into the remaining parts of this game.
Looking out again as all the abilities are activating.
Just try to get the Trick Room up and running now.
Now he is looking out very distracted this time.
The Trigger has hit the field and the Armor Tail ability is active.
See, I can say he is looking out a bit more distracted this time. He's just looking out quite often. Granted, this is round 3, so he's seen all these things activate. It's not like you have to really look at the screen this time, because you know the order of things by round 3. I mean, you've taken your notes, you know what to expect.
for this Ursaluna instead, but there is no Electro Drift. It's just a helping hand on top of a Draco Meteor, which can miss, but it's going to hit its target into the Ursaluna. A one-shot, huge knockout, and a big lead for Lorenzo in this third game.
I love that play. Kind of like Shiliang getting...
See, now he made a call per se, but at the same time he really needed to get rid of that Incineroar. So the Incineroar was an issue for his team, I would say. So getting rid of it, but yet got the actual additional benefit. Instead of focusing on an electric attack, focused on his dragon attack, which if the Incineroar did swap out, he was still going to do massive damage against whatever swapped into it. So that was a call that he made, and he was able to benefit greatly from it. So nothing wrong with that. You do see him occasionally looking out, and he just nodded this time because he was just feeling as though he just did really well in terms of making that play. So now let's just continue on.
Game 1 where he wasn't getting baited by Luna. I'm going to go straight for this Helping Hand Draco Meteor. With the Frigoraf's Armor Tail, you cannot possibly fake out Miraidon, so I know that damage is guaranteed on this turn. And taking that Ursaluna out is really, really major for, I think, 2 reasons. One, huge damage source from Shiliang's team. We saw it, be the main source of damage in that first game. But 2, the electric immunity is gone. If you swap out Miraidon and bring it back on the field, you're able to Electro Drift and Volt Switch freely without wondering, am I going to get caught by this ground-type Pokemon? So a really, really big turn 1 for Lorenzo here. But it's a -2 now. This is a turn where he doesn't have much offensive pressure. Shiliang now can try...
Okay. Right here, automatically I will say Lorenzo, I mean, I don't know him or anything, but this does look bad. It really does. So it's like you were about to select your move, then you're looking out, then you're about to select, then you're looking out again. The timer's running out, and then you look away. It's not like you're looking always down at your paper or making like a plan in your head. You're looking out to the crowd and then focusing there. And it looked like you were about to make a selection, then you kind of stopped, then went back, and then look out, then you kind of went back again. That looks a bit odd. So let's look. So let's go back just a little bit, and we'll see again. So this last 40 seconds. Let's see. So we're going to watch this really carefully here.
Terrestrializations. Lorenzo
looks
said,
out.
I'm not going to let you try and catch on Electric
Lunala comes in. Okay.
I'm going to go straight for this Helping Hand Draco Meteor.
Pokemon swap.
Frigoraf's Armor Tail, you cannot possibly fake
Just
out
checking
Miraidon,
your
so I know that
Miraidon.
damage is guaranteed on this turn. And taking that Ursaluna out is really, really major for, I think, 2 reasons. One, huge damage source from Shiliang's team. We saw it.
Looks like you're about to use your attack, right?
But
then you look down, now you look out.
Swap out Miraidon and bring it back on the field.
There you go back.
Drift and Volt Switch freely without
Thinking about it.
wondering,
Now you're looking back out again.
Pokemon. So a really, really big turn 1 for Lorenzo here.
Then you back out.
It's a -2
Looking
now.
out
This
again.
is a turn where he doesn't have
Like,
much offensive pressure.
So you're wasting a lot of the time. Like, you can't timer stall right now.
Miraidon and Lunala on the field, both of which are capable of turning to turn the tides.
Ooh, well, it's not going to be Shiliang only.
So
that's
then
going
he
to have an
looked
adjustment
out
for this third
again.
game. Lorenzo as well, as we see the Iron Hands revealed. And so you're going to get a Cork Drive boost. Looks like it's going to be an attack that's going to get heightened from that boost. As we
See,
see
you're
now,
looking out
working
very
on
frequently.
Terrestrialization. And it kind of makes a lot of sense to lock into the Draco Meteor as well. You know that...
See, like, or during this, he is looking out very, very, very frequently. And if we zoom back out here, we see, like, Shiliang is looking at his game as opposed to Lorenzo looking out at the crowd.
To that slot, you could be in a little bit of a rough spot here.
I wonder, though, is Shiliang going to actually set up the Trick Room? Obviously, we get an answer to that now, but I was very curious if that was still something that he would look at, knowing that there isn't... Well, he actually didn't know, I guess. He selected the Trick Room before he knew that there was an Iron Hands at play here.
A very aggressive Iron Hands swap there. I think maybe even predicting that Trick Room, especially knowing you have not revealed Iron Hands in either of the first 2 games. It might be something that Shiliang doesn't expect to see. And now that Trick Room goes up, it might depend on how the Incineroar and the Iron Hands are trained, but you might expect Iron Hands to be slower than Incineroar most of the time.
Okay, see, now that looks weird. Lorenzo, this does look very bad, honestly. let's if we go back right there, it's like you're looking at your opponent's Pokemon, but it's not like anything purposeful, and you're just sitting there, and then you're just looking out into the crowd. Like, let's go back.
Too much damage here, but the Lunala is going to get the chance to attack. And if it's a Moonblast into that slot, you could be in a little bit of a rough spot here.
I wonder though, is Shiliang going to actually set up the Trick Room? Obviously we get an answer to that now, but I was very curious if that was still something that he would look at, knowing that there isn't, well, he actually didn't know, I guess. He selected the Trick Room before he knew that there was an Iron Hands in play here.
A very aggressive Iron Hands swap there. I think maybe even...
See, you're selecting Drain Punch. You're gonna go after
the first two games.
the...
It might be something that Shiliang doesn't expect to see. And now that Trick Room goes up, it might depend on how the Incineroar and the Iron Hands are trained, but you might expect Iron Hands to be slower than Incineroar most of the time. Now that Trick Room is up, you have a really strong threat of these fighting type attacks into this Incineroar that cannot terraform.
Okay. This is where I can see where there's an issue, okay? If we go back one more time, okay? We're not going to zoom in. And I'm going to mute it. I'm going to mute this here so we can converse during this process here. So it's... All right. Now, if you can see him looking in right now, he's looking out to the crowd. We get the Trick Room. They're like, okay, he's setting up the Trick Room. Didn't know that the Iron Hands was here. So now, he pressed swap, right? Okay, pause there. He pressed swap. He's going to get his Miraidon to get its stats back. Now we're going to the Iron Hand selection. And it has the opportunity, Wild Charge, Drain Punch, Fake Out, Locate. Doesn't want to use, if it does not terrestrialize, it runs the risk of taking massive damage from the Lunala. If it can also go straight for the Wild Charge, do massive damage on some of these Pokemon, or it can go for the Drain Punch against the Incineroar. Or it can fake out the Incineroar and cause it to flinch, right? So these are the options, or you can run your Terra and, you know, still do a fake out so you don't take as much damage from the Lunala. Few different variables, so you may be thinking it through, right? But now let's see. You select Drain Punch. You're looking at the Incineroar, and now you're looking out to the crowd. Then you go back. You select Fake Out, and then you look out to the crowd, and you're staring. Okay, you look back. You look back. You're wondering. Then you go back, you select terrestrialization, fake out, you look back out, and then you select again. So you said, oh, am I going to use Drain Punch? Okay, no, then what about fake out? And then you look back out. It's almost like you're getting a signal. But then after that, you back out and you say, oh, should I terrestrialize and do that? And then somebody was maybe saying, yeah, that. Okay, then you select it. So that can be bad. That looks bad. I have to admit that looks bad. But I mean, we're not done. We're not done, but it looks bad. Okay, you swapped. You do the terrestrialization. Now you do the gentle lookout. See, the way you look out is a bit different. Sometimes you just calmly look out, but then there's other times you just look at somewhere in particular. So you get the fake out, get the Rocky Helmet, you look back out again, then they go for the Moonblast. You don't take as much damage. Yep. Then you look out. The looking out this frequently is a bit odd, because in the previous tournament that we were looking at, he did not look out this often. So something's a bit off. Now, we don't know what's going on in his life, in his personal life, or anything of the sort. We don't know if he has family there or any additional supporters or anything. He's trying to look for their approval. Who knows, what is exactly going on? Maybe he's focusing on some individuals that are there to support him, and then he's just like, you know, trying to constantly look for that affirmation. Okay, you go for the drain punch. Okay. You look out briefly. Then you look out again. Now that nod, I was reading something about him nodding, but that was a nod saying, "Oh, they did the will-o-wisp and they went into the photograph." He was like, "All right, cool. So it doesn't matter if I got will-o-wisp." So I would that was nothing on him if that's the nod they were talking about. But he keeps looking out. That's what's throwing me off there.
And now, because you broke that Shadow Shield and because the Electric Seed is gone,
looking out,
you have the option to just one-hit KO this Lunala from here with the Sucker Punch.
That is a tough position.
All right, so
for
now
Shilling to be in,
you're selecting
Lunala doesn't
your
actually
move.
have protect.
You're
It
looking
only
out
has
into the
that
crowd.
one option to protect itself and its partner. And since that foul or Sucker Punch is a single target attack,
He's
it's not
looking
gonna
out a lot
from that
before
particular
deciding
move. So
if you're gonna go protect.
Decides maybe we're just going to save this Qianpao with this Trick Room expiring soon.
He just keeps pausing and looking, pausing and looking.
Exactly.
It just looks bad. It looks bad.
Sucker Punch mind games, which could be one of your only possible losing options here.
But for now, we see that it's just the Moonblast selected. This Qianpao gets to stay at full HP. What a great set between these two players. But I love that Lorenzo really stuck to his guns. He said, okay, I knew that this was going to be a...
Okay, so then he looks out. But of course, everybody always looks out to the crowd like, yeah, I did it. So, you know, honestly, it looks bad. It definitely looks bad. There's nothing I can really say about that. You know, it definitely has an issue with how that looks. However, let's go back and take a look at a couple other things. So this is from Esports Illustrated. Now, they are even covering Pokemon VGC tournaments, so that's actually pretty cool. But now, they're talking about during the 6th round of the Pokemon VGC play at the Milwaukee Regionals, Lorenzo Ars was a rising talent in the Scarlet Violet era. Play was disqualified from the event while participating in the match on stream. Yes, so as we said, Anderson's judges involved ruled that he was receiving signals from someone in the crowd after seeing him nod in the direction of the live audience in attendance, thus removing him from play with a DQ. So, yeah, people nod you like, hey, people would be like, oh my gosh, I made a great move. And they're like, yeah, I did it. I've seen people actually do like 3-turn protect before and just shout it out to the crowd. Was like, yeah, I did it. It's not like somebody told them to protect 3 times. Nobody does that, but they did it. And then it was like a big, exciting thing. So, I mean, come on. But now, oh, see, now there's somebody actually writing saying, oh, a VGC player got disqualified for acknowledging the crowd. If the Unite admins did this, I would be permabanned. Because people, you know, you acknowledge the crowd. That's what you do. But now, this is where things are a bit odd. Because based on the situation, which was shown live from our point of view, on stream, the reason for his disqualification would be a judge making the claim that he was somehow receiving help from someone sending signals in the audience. However, that would imply that someone was capable of seeing his opponent, Tang Shiliang's, actions and then signal to Ars in a small window of time in order to influence key plays. Something would be very difficult to pull off without how VGC games are played. Now, that is the biggest problem because, yes, as I said, everything's looked bad. They look very bad. So, that, I wouldn't say at the same time that we should be afraid to acknowledge the crowd at these tournaments. It now does make a few people a bit uneasy about going on stage, but at the same time, I would also say we are not necessarily needing to stare at the crowd that often. That makes it look very bad. However, altogether, nonetheless, if we are all seeing from Lorenzo's point of view, no one can see what Shiliang is doing. So if we cannot see what Shiliang is doing, anybody can say, hey, we see your moves, you should do fake out. You should do drain punch. What if you did fake out already and then I'm just constantly just in front of the crowd and saying, use fake out again, knowing it doesn't work. But I'm shouting the advice, use fake out, use fake out. What if I tell you use fake out if on the turn that I think your opponent is about to use sucker punch? Therefore, your fake out will go first and then your opponent's sucker punch will fail. That is a way how you can just basically cancel it out. So That's a thing, but nonetheless, I'm saying that people in the crowd can say whatever they want because they are telling you what to do, but at the same time, they don't know what Shiliang is doing. So anyone can shout out advice doesn't mean you have to take it. So does that mean that you just technically have a coach that's just basically trying to just help guide you on what's like could be your best play or how are you pinning? But I'm not 100% sure like how that would really be so detrimental in the tournament, because again, it's not like they're looking at Shiliang's team or seeing what he's pressing and then say, hey, he's about to do this, you need to do this to try to counter it. It's just saying, hey, if I were you, I would probably do that move, but you also are the one playing the game. You have the option to not do what anybody else is telling you to do. I've had streams before where we're doing things on Pokemon Showdown. They're like, oh, I would do this move. And they're like, oh, well, I just clicked this move instead. Oh, and this worked out for me. Or, oh, yeah, your move would have been better if I went your route. I mean, it just happens that way. It's not necessarily the say-all, be-all just because somebody says it. But again, at the same time, I must acknowledge the fact that that length of the pause and then you choosing your moves and things of the sort makes it look bad. But at the same time, I would say that it's just not feasible for someone to have caused him to win the match just by just giving quote-unquote signals, supposedly. But so for him to be full-on disqualified, especially even rounds later, and just not even giving him a way to dispute it or anything of the sort. I mean, where's the individual giving him the pointers? If you know who that individual is, then go after them as well. I mean, there needs to be more information, and that is where the TPCI, the Pokemon Company International, is basically very lacking in terms of when we have our tournaments. They don't give enough information, they don't tell us things, and that is where things are unfortunate there. Because even as we go through this article here, see, there we go. There's somebody saying, here's the main argument. How could he have been helped? The stream was his perspective, meaning nobody in the crowd could have signaled anything to him that he wouldn't already know. No backline mon, no moves in advance, nothing. So you could maybe argue that someone in the crowd would have time to take information revealed through the game and then find some calcs or lines and then try to signal that back, but that's practically absurd. Like, wave us some damage roll early means that their CSR is O-code. It's ridiculous. Yeah, exactly. This is one of the most heinous targeted judge rulings I've ever seen. I intend to put in a ticket about it. I wonder how do y'all do tickets? I don't know how to put in tickets about stuff like that. But because he's my friend, as do others, I can only hope this judge either learns their lesson or never runs a tournament again. But again, it's somebody that made the claim. I believe it was stated somewhere that it wasn't necessarily the judge that was on stage, but it could have been a different judge. But whoever made this ruling said it was just non-disputable. That's the problem. And here's that issue here is where, as a result of this decision, there are also players calling for more transparency and accountability for decisions made by judges, which has historically been something that remains undisclosed unless a judge decides to elaborate at the time of a ruling. And that is the issue. They can come in and say, hey, you're getting a round one loss or game one loss or etc. And it's for, we believe this or this or this. And you're like, well, that's incorrect. Like, well, that's the way it is. And then they just move on. And I believe that that is a lot of horse crap, basically, because there are issues that where you submit things and it's just incorrect on how it even populates on their sheets or something else, or like whether or not Arcanine may have translated some information incorrectly, or they'll say, hey, this move is on this Pokemon, but it's like, hey, that Pokemon can't even possibly even learn that move. It's just something that happened on the drop down menu. It just brought it in. Then they're like, oh, well, it's just incorrect, so you just got to delete the move and you got to work with this. And it's like, guys, you should be able to make an exception. Nobody does this. Like, seriously. Like, oh, no, we can't. You found it too late. Like, seriously, guys? So the way how they do some of their rulings is just kind of nonsensical. But nonetheless, you know, that's the game we play currently. Known Pokemon Data Master and VGC Information Keeper Kefodix also clarified that the Pokemon Company and its partners will likely not elaborate on the situation at all, and players equating this to decisions made around illegal Pokemon and team checks aren't using accurate information in their arguments. And that is very much the case. They can say, oh, something's just either legitimate or not legitimate. That's why I always just make sure everything that I do is legitimate, because I don't even want to even have to deal with it. But who knows if something that can ever pop up and just make some type of an issue, because you just still do everything right, but yet what if something odd just flags and I'm like, that's literally not possible. I have tons of videos showing that I've done everything legitimate, but who knows? I still worry about that to a degree. For the most part, I don't, because I'm like, I know all my stuff is legit, but then at the same time, little part says, oh, what if something's wrong is going crazy? So who knows? I don't know, but I digress. This is where it says that the fact that they are not fully transparent about certain rulings and things of the sort, and these things may not be accurate, that is where it's just extremely unfortunate. And then they're just saying, oh, yeah, you can't even dispute it. And that just sucks. So if we go back to Lorenzo's post, we'll see here that he's like, say, I have no words. I appreciate the support, everyone. Someone say, hey, you are the GOAT. Sucks to see this happen. You deserve so much better, man. I'm sorry you have to went through that. So it seems like if you breathe wrong at one of these tournaments, you get DQ'd. Let's see, you did nothing wrong. We're right here with you, and we're absolutely outraged. It's not your fault. Insane that this happened to you. Man, I just watched you on the replay and was very impressed with your adaptation, but surely no one truly believes there was foul play involved. Judges on a power trip for real. Horrible call from the judges. So people are very much in support of Lorenzo here. And my question is, what do you all think? So going back and looking at the footage and just seeing how often he was looking up and with those pauses, what do you believe that he was just thinking? Or do you believe that there was possibly somebody in the crowd giving him signals? But even if anyone else were giving some type of signals, do you believe that it will be anything that is going to be viable in terms of saying, hey, you should be disqualified, because we still could not see his opponent's screen of what they were doing? So do you think this is grounds for disqualification, or do you even believe that there was even anybody there in the first place? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to leave a like, share, subscribe, turn on those notifications, see when the next videos go live. Also, make sure you're heading over to my Twitch page at twitch.tv/Raikazi11, where you can see the upcoming streaming schedule, and then you can also follow me there so you'll be there for when we go live. But at this moment in time, this is going to be Raikazi signing off. You all know what to do. You stay strong, and you power on. We catch y'all later.